fiction, nothing trivial.
Well, the turkey's done.
So is the kitchen. Actually, it's a little overdone for my taste. Let's not go there again.
You don't want to tell me what happened?
No, I don't. I just want to relax in a nice lukewarm bath.
What about this?
I don't think that can hurt us anymore.
Well, my guess is they waived home inspections. So while major home improvements necessary are no laughing matter like in that, welcome to Real Estate Reality, where we talk all things real estate. My name is Dawn Satterjay, and I'm your host. And today I am joined with Andy Kebalo from Kebalo Home Inspections. Welcome.
Thank you, Don.
So Andy, I'm sure you have lots of stories for us, but I want to kind of start from the beginning and have you tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move right into why home inspections are important for buyers.
Absolutely. So I've been a home inspector about 5 years now, have about 750 home inspections under my belt. And before that, I was a builder, build single-family homes and multifamily age-restricted condos, mostly in South Windsor. And also, I own, with my brother, an electrical contracting company. And graduate of South Windsor High School, got my bachelor's at CCSU in construction management.
Nice.
And so I've been doing the home inspections for the last, like I said, 5 years, and I find it very rewarding. I enjoy helping people at this very important juncture of their lives where they're making a big dollar amount purchase.
Seems like you being a builder gives you a different perspective too on things than a lot of times. A lot of home inspectors don't have the history that you have. So that seems like it would be very valuable to a potential buyer.
Yeah, yes, and I have when I first started becoming a home inspector, my problem was I knew too much, and not only did I find the defects, but I would kind of try to tell the client how much it would cost to fix and
how to fix it.
and how to fix it. So, and sometimes that's not the best thing to do. You have to kind of stay neutral in those kinds of things, because if somebody buys a house because I told them that it would only cost $1,000 to fix and it costed them $5,000, then I'm kind of could be on the hook for that. So
They'll be calling you up, looking for you to come fix it.
could very well be.
So when you go out to do a home inspection, so there's been a lot of, let's back up just a little bit. A lot of talk lately with this very aggressive market that we're in. It's definitely still a seller's market. A lot of times buyers are feeling pressured to waive inspections. So what are some of the dangers in a buyer waiving home inspections?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. This market is unique, and what we're seeing is historic low number of inventory and historically high pricing. And a lot of, as you know, a lot of buyers are waiving home inspections and to some degree appraisals to make their offer look more
Right.
competitive and desirable. And here's the problem with skipping a home inspection. So basically, you could be buying a house that has many defects, and this house could become a money pit, okay?
Hopefully not as bad as one we just saw.
Yeah, that was a little bit to an extreme. So I'm predicting there's going to be buyer's remorse. People that are waiving home inspections are going to realize in 6 months to a year that the roof is leaking, that the heating system is broken, or there's termites in the house, and it could become a real nightmare. And if you really think about it, if you're buying a $300,000, $400,000 house, what's $500, $600 of an investment? And that's what it is. It's an investment in the home inspection.
Right. So I just want to note here for our viewers too, a lot of times people are living in their home and they might not know the defects of it because they've been there so long. So for example, you mentioned termites. Termites can kind of creep in without you even realizing they're there as you're living in your home, right? And there's other defects that could happen. Perhaps there's a leak in the plumbing that's maybe between the second floor bathroom and the ceiling on the first floor that just hasn't shown itself yet because maybe there's insulation between there, or maybe there's just a lot of things that could be going on that homeowners may not be aware of. And then it's just something that would come over time. And when someone buys a home and doesn't have that knowledge because they didn't do a home inspection, that's when they get into some major expenses.
Sure, absolutely. What about radon gas? If you're waiving your home inspection, are you waiving the radon gas test also? What about asbestos in a home? Many homes prior to the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of them have asbestos in a house. Everything in a floor tile to insulation, wrap on the heating pipes. So there's a lot of things that you'd be missing out without getting that home inspection.
So can you just walk us through like a typical home inspection? Let's say you get to the house. So somebody does.
Sure.
They're one of the few that don't waive home inspections.
Yeah.
So they call you up, and what happens next?
So basically, a home inspection is a snapshot of the components and systems that make up a home. Okay, it's not a code inspection. We're not code enforcement officials, although a lot of times building code and like safety issues come to play, and they're common. And a home inspection is also not invasive. What I mean by that, the inspector will not open up walls to see if there's insulation behind a wall.
Oh, that makes me laugh. Because do you remember that show? Oh, there was one on like the Discovery, maybe not Discovery, I can't remember the channel, but it was a home inspector guy. But he would go in and he'd start prying the trim off the house and trying to get behind there. And I think people were starting to expect that for a little while. But no, the non-invasive is really important.
Correct. And also, it's not technically exhaustive. What that means is that the home inspector is not going to take your furnace apart to check on the heat exchangers to see if they're cracked, and that kind of thing.
So what do you look for, though?
So the typical home inspection, first of all, the state of Connecticut has got a standard for all home inspectors to abide by when they do a home inspection. So typically when I show up on a home inspection, I do the exterior first. What am I looking for? I'm looking at the exterior cladding, typically vinyl siding, aluminum siding, brick, that kind of thing. I'm looking for positive drainage away from the house. You don't want your grade to be pitched toward the house, which promotes potential moisture intrusion into your house. I'm also looking for safety issues like trip hazards. Has the sidewalk separated? Is there a raised edge on the sidewalk where somebody could trip and fall? Also, I'm looking at the deck. Is the deck safe? Does it have hangers? Is the ledger bolted to the house? Is it structurally solid? Is it rotted out? Those kinds of things, and then I'll get my ladder out and try to at least get to the edge of the roof to check on a roof.
Okay.
I'm looking at the roof covering. I'm looking at the gutter system. I'm looking at the flashing. I'm looking at the chimney.
So what are you looking for a roof? Let's say the roof is, I don't know, say it's 15 years old and it's, let's say it's an architectural shingle. So
Right.
what are you looking for that could be like a warning that something needs to be addressed or?
So typically, an asphalt roof has got like these granulars that are embedded into the tar and the fiberglass fiber of the roof. When those granulars start migrating, when the UV rays over the decades start deteriorating the shingle, those mineral particles will start separating, and you'll find them in the gutter.
Okay,
Okay, so that's a telltale sign that the surface is starting to deteriorate, and then it's going to start allowing the UV lights. It just hastens and quickens the deterioration of the roof.
okay.
And obviously, missing shingles, things that are obvious, totally areas that are devoid of any roofing material, those kinds of things.
Okay, do you look at the chimneys too, I assume? And-
Yeah. If I can get up on a roof, I'll try to look down the chimney to take a look at the flue. If I can't, once I go in the house, I'll try to look up the chimney if there isn't a wood stove or a fireplace insert. I look at that, and also I look at the mortar around the chimney, the flashing around the vent pipes and things like that. And then after that, you go into the house, and what's inspected in the house is the interiors. I'm looking at the doors, I'm looking at the hardware, I'm looking at the cabinets, I'm looking at the flooring, the ceilings, looking for any active leaks in the ceiling, signs of leaks, moisture stains. Then another part of the inspection is the electrical. I'm looking at the electrical panel. I open up the panel. I look at, I check the outlets to see if there's any reverse polarity or open grounds. I'm checking to see if there's GFCI protection for safety in the bathrooms and kitchens, and the overall wiring in general. And I'm also looking for the absence or presence of smoke detectors.
Okay,
Then I'll move on to like the heating system, check the boiler. If it's got a hot water boiler, I'll check the boiler for any leaking, for cracks. I'll turn the heat on. If it's forced hot air, I'll make sure that the distribution of all the vents is working properly. And then if it's warm enough, I'll check the AC to see if the compressor comes on, if there's a noticeable drop in temperature of the AC air, and just the general looking at anything related with the heating system, the radiators, the piping, the vents, those kinds of things. So then you have the structural. Very important. I'm looking at the foundation. I'm looking to see if there's any signs of crumbling foundation, which is an issue, particularly in Northeast Connecticut. I'm looking at the structure, the framing, the attic, the framing in the attic. I'm looking at any columns, steel lolly columns, or lack of columns in the basement. I'm looking at the girders, the beams, if there's any deterioration or structural issues with that. And then we move on to like the ventilation and insulation. I'll get into the attic and look at the attic to see if it's properly insulated. And a big part of a home system, I should say, that a lot of people don't realize or understand much is ventilation. Ventilation is very important. If your attic is lacking ventilation, then it will quicken the deterioration of your roof, and also can create a high humidity issue, which promotes mold and fungal growth.
and that's something that a lot of homeowners wouldn't know, because a lot of times houses are built with just the little kind of scuttle to get into the attic area. So, I mean, I don't know when the last time I went up into my attic is, and most people probably don't go into the attic. It's really just full of insulation.
Correct.
But it is kind of important, right, to just get up there, make sure you don't have any kind of
Right.
fungal growth on the sheathing.
Right. Absolutely. And lastly, the plumbing. I'll check the plumbing system. I'll check the fixtures to see if they work, if the drains all work properly. I'll do what's called a flow test where I'll turn on several, especially if it's well water, I'll turn on several faucets and flush the toilet and run the shower to see if there's a noticeable drop in water pressure. And I also check any other issues with the plumbing. We don't really do wells. If I see a well system, I'll call that out for a well company, because if there's a system there, then they're filtering something, and the medium in that filter varies depending on what they're trying to treat. So that's pretty much an overall view of what's involved with a home inspection. Believe it or not, the state of Connecticut does not require you to check appliances, okay? But I do as a courtesy. I won't check a jacuzzi or a jetted tub because I had a bad experience with that once. But I'll check if the microwave works and the oven comes on. Also check the refrigerator, see if that's working. So those are the types of things. What's not inspected: alarm systems, obviously telephone, anything low voltage, security systems, smoke detectors, that kind of those items, and that's all in the scope of work.
So how
Standards
long
of
do you
practice.
figure, what's your average on a home inspection?
Average house is about an hour and a half.
Okay.
If it's a big house, 2,000 square feet plus, it could be 2 hours plus. I had a mansion in Hamden. It took me 6 hours to inspect with 4 guys. It was
That must have been fun.
it was big. It was a big house. A lot of rooms.
So you had mentioned, so like when you're looking at the lolly columns and structure of a house, so what are you looking for it to be? Like, is it just that it's straight, that they're just there every so
Right.
many feet? What is it
Right.
exactly you're
So-
looking for?
So first of all, I'm looking to make sure there's no screw jacks. A lot of people think that a screw jack is just a temporary fix. A screw jack is like those adjustable columns with the handle that you tighten
Yep.
to push up on the
I see
beam.
those a lot in antique homes.
Yeah, those should be really replaced with lolly columns, concrete-filled lolly columns, because they're not designed to handle the weight of a house.
Okay.
So I'm looking at that, and obviously I'm looking to make sure somebody didn't run a plumbing pipe or a vent pipe and cut through 3/4 of a beam. I see that all the time. Somebody runs a new bathroom and they'll lob huge holes through a joist, which is effectively rendering that joist non-load bearing. So those are the kinds of things structurally in the basement that I'm looking at. And a lot of the older homes, like the brick columns, they're so deteriorated that the mortar's coming out, and they've already lost their structural integrity.
So do you usually see that upstairs too? So you would see it in the sagging of floors, or not necessarily in the main living area?
Yeah, you can. You got to be conscientious, like with an old home. You got something that's 150 years old, 200 years old. It's not going to pass modern standards. The walls may be like this, and the floors may be like that. I mean, typically a house like that has settled in to where it's going to be, and it probably won't move anymore unless there's termites or some kind of moisture intrusion that's causing deterioration of the beams and things like that. Plus, 200 years ago, a lot of the farmhouses, they just built it with whatever they had on hand.
true.
It's not up to modern standards of construction like they have now. But
They're still standing.
they're still standing. Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about, I know you said that we were talking earlier, and you were talking about flips. So with the crazy market that we've had,
Right.
there's a lot of people who have gone out,
Yeah.
and, I mean, it is a dream. Everybody watches, the different television shows, and
Right.
who doesn't want to take an ugly house and make it beautiful, and in the process make
Yeah,
Make some money on it.
You
So-
mean like that show, Flip This House in 24 hours
Yes.
and make $100 grand?
Yes, that would be
Yeah,
wonderful,
yeah.
wouldn't it?
So again, yeah, exactly. It's hard for me to believe, but I guess they do it. So with this market, again, historic low inventory, historic high pricing, what I'm seeing is everybody and their brother are going and getting involved. If there's money to be made, they're flipping houses, okay? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy a flip or look at a flip, but you need to know what you're looking at. A lot of times what I'll see is that they will put the money in the wow effect items, which are the fancy kitchens with the granite and the new counters and the tile and all that, the bathrooms with the tile and the granite and all that. And then they'll actually either neglect or just don't look at structural, electrical, plumbing,
heating systems,
and those types of things. I've seen houses that the flipper actually just covered a broken siding with a piece of duct tape and painted right over it. And I think I have an example of that here. You could if you look closely where the arrow is showing.
Did it pop up for Mike? There it is.
Yeah, you can see that's vinyl siding, and they just took some duct tape, taped over the broken piece of tile, and painted it. Okay.
Well, duct tape really is a fix-all, isn't it?
It is a fix-all, and it's just an example of. So you see a fancy kitchen. This was a flip, okay?
Yep.
Beautiful kitchen.
Very pretty.
And then when I went in the basement, I mean that's the trap, okay, to the sink. Totally homemade, is made out of totally substandard, made out of 4 different components.
Oh. I don't see duct tape though.
Yeah. And I get a couple other examples. Paint also, you got to be aware of paint. If something's freshly painted, then you should kind of pay more attention to it. Here's an example of a outside deck. That corner is totally rotted out, okay? But the house was a flip, and they wanted to sell it, so instead of replacing the beam, they thought they'd get away with just painting over.
And then attach the gutter to it?
Yeah, and the attached a gutter to it. So those are the kinds of things I'm seeing. The worst thing I saw was this wall between the garage and the kitchen was covered with new sheetrock, totally eaten by termites, and the homeowner had no idea until he started probing into the.
So how did they find that? So they had to take the sheetrock down to.
So what happened was that they noticed something.
And was this after they bought the house?
After they bought the house,
Okay.
and I feel bad for the home. I did. Actually, I got called in on this one as an expert witness. This actually house had a home inspection and had a termite guy, but it was so well concealed that they didn't see it.
Okay.
I guess the owner opened up a cabinet and looked in the back of the cabinet and saw something strange, and then started digging in deep and found out that the whole back of the cabinets in the kitchen were eaten by termites. So then he started taking sheetrock off, and lo and behold, found all this termite damage. And like I said, I feel bad for the inspector. He probably did a good job, but he just didn't see it. So those are some of the kinds of things that I'm looking at when I'm looking at a flip. I had an example here. So they did a kitchen remodel and just threw all the old electrical into the attic. Okay, never mind capping it off. That's what you're looking at is just wiring that was pushed up into the attic.
And just left?
Yeah, and a lot of that is live wiring. And insulation just pushed all over the place. So those are the kinds of things that you kind of have to look. Again, I don't want to give the flip industry a bad name, but you got to really look hard when it's a flip.
So, well, that's really important because a lot of times the houses look fantastic, and that is, like you said, that's what a lot of people want. You want the pretty kitchen, the pretty bathrooms.
Yeah.
And a lot of the belief out there, and it is, that that's the big money. Those are the big ticket items. But in reality, they're not necessarily when you're, you don't have the heat or the AC
Right.
or the
Right.
structure.
And usually I'm after the wife falls in love with the kitchen and the husband falls in love with the garage, I'm the one
That ruins
being the
the
bearer
deal.
of the bad news that you got some serious issues, like the roof is leaking or
So
some other major
ultimately, it
issues.
comes into, so you come in as almost like a neutral kind of party who comes in to look at it. I know I always tell my clients, I think it's important to do a home inspection. The home inspector comes in as a very neutral party, and, you get paid whether they buy it or not, right? But it's just, your job is to be there to make sure it's safe for them, and that they're not getting in over their heads. Because a lot
Right.
of times buyers do plan to make repairs or
Mm-hmm.
kind of personalize the house, make it their own, take out a wall or something along those lines. But,
Yeah, and also in a normal market, the inspection process, you can use it as a tool, as a mechanism to either have the homeowner fix that item or give money back. And that's not reality in this market. It's kind of what we're seeing is kind of things as is. So the home inspection is actually a tool. It helps you make an intelligent decision, okay? And also whether there's what I call them showstoppers, okay? Things that are like structural issues that are horrendous with the house, that are going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to fix. To know about those things, and without a home inspection, you could be buying a lemon. And what I like to do is I try to prioritize issues. I like to tell the client, yeah, this GFCI is not working, but it's a $40 item. It's a $40 fix.
Yep.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a half or a 1. Okay. Something more major, you got like we're talking about structural issues, roof, heating systems. You get some big ticket items there, electrical, that could cost a lot of money.
so you know a lot about the electrical, having been an electrician. So question I have for you.
Right.
So rule of thumb has always been like you can't have central air unless you have a 200 amp service.
Okay.
Yet we see houses with central air and a 100 amp service.
Right. So that's actually a great question because I get that all the time. So typically, when electricity first became available commonly in homes, houses had a 60 amp service. But these still cooked with gas or wood, and there wasn't a big demand for electricity. They had one light bulb and one outlet per room.
Pretty much,
That,
right?
that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Then I think in the 70s, 60s, 70s, the code changed and now requires a 100 amp service. And a 100 amp service is really plenty, okay? Unless you have a big house and you have electric heat,
Okay.
okay? If you have a big house with a 100 amp service, but you have a propane oven, a propane or gas hot water heater and furnace, then you may be okay. So if you have central air, it's not necessarily the benchmark that you need a 200 amp service.
Right.
It also depends on what else is happening in that house.
Okay.
And like I like to equate it is electric heat. Look at it, electric heat. If the house has got electric heat, then you really should have a 200 amp service.
Okay. Looks like we're running out of time. So, Andy, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
And so
having me.
before I go, though, can you just share how people would reach you?
Sure. It's Kebalo Inspection Services, LLC. I am a sole owner and proprietor, so if you hire me, I'm the one coming out doing the inspection. My telephone number is 860-883-1391, and I do have a website. It's Kebalo Home Inspections Services.com.
KebaloHomeServices.com, right?
HomeInspectionServices.com.
HomeInspectionServices.com. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, and
Thank you
I
very
greatly
much.
appreciate your knowledge.
Thank you very much for having me.